Griffith. Excessive force.
Die with a little dignity.
Finally, the punishment fits the crime.
Hey, this is Matt. Once again, what about the other videos? The paid request this time for Jesse. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, reviews, re-reviews, what have you, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. Now, this is for a film called Excessive Force from 1993, which, to be honest, I had never seen all the way through until now. And this was a lot of fun. Like, I really enjoyed this movie. I think if you enjoy those action films back to the day, whether it be like The Perfect Weapon with Jeff Speakman, those early Van Damme, Steven Seagal type of movies, this is like right up that alley. And it stars Thomas Ian Griffith. And I think one of the reasons I never gave this a fair shot is because Thomas Ian Griffith was in The Karate Part 3, and I hate The Karate Part 3. And I hate his performance in that. And I hate a lot of things about that. Now, this is a time when New Line Cinema, who released this, they wanted their action guy. This is a time where studios wanted their action guys. Because at that time, Steven Seagal was with Warner Brothers. So Warner Brothers had their guy doing Above the Law, Out for Justice, Hard to Kill, Under Siege, big hits. Van Damme, I mean, he did stuff for like Canon Films, and then Carrico, Universal Soldier, but now he's beginning to be the Universal guy, because I think Lionheart was released by Universal, and then of course, then Hard Target, Time Cop, and then eventually Street Fighter, The Quest. So it's like Universal was like, okay, we got our action guy, Van Damme. Warner Brothers, our action guy, Seagal. New Line Cinema, our action guy, Thomas Ian Griffith. And I think maybe Paramount felt maybe Jeff Speakman would be that with The Perfect Weapon. And sadly, like The Perfect Weapon, this film didn't do anything. Now, I would say I like The Perfect Weapon more than this. But this had a really good cast. It had a lot of action, a lot of fight scenes. Thomas Ian Griffith is a pretty decent martial artist and a decent actor. I mean, he was a pretty decent actor in this. And I've seen him in other stuff. He was in a film with Donald Sutherland and Tia Carrere. Was it Hollow Point? I remember liking that one. He was, of course, the villain in John Carpenter's Vampires. And the rest of the cast, I mean, you got Thomas Ian Griffith wrote, produced this film, and he starred in it. So there's definitely a big project for him. And before I do the cast, this film only made like $1 million. And I don't know if like it was only in a couple theaters. I don't know what happened, because it seemed like, okay, New Line Cinema wants to have an action guy, Thomas Ian Griffith. You let him write, produce. You get Jon Hess, who directed the first Watchers with Corey Haim. You get him to direct. But then you don't give him much of a release. I don't know if like they saw the film and for some reason lost hope for it, or there's some other stuff going on. I don't know. But the plot's not the most original plot, to be fair. You have a cop. He gets framed for a crime he didn't commit. He was framed that he stole this drug money, and then he's framed that he murdered this mob guy. And then he's protecting himself. He's protecting his girlfriend, played by Charlotte Lewis, from the Golden Child. And he wants to find out who set him up and take down the bad guys. Again, you've seen this plot done 100 times. But for its short running time of 80-some minutes, there's a lot of action. It's done slick enough that you see as a theatrical release. There's shootouts. And gun battles. Nothing tastes like John Woo type of stuff. But, there's some shootouts. There's some decent stunt work. There's some nice high kicks that Thomas Ian Griffith showcases. the cast, you got Tony Todd, Candyman himself, as Thomas Ian Griffith's partner. You got Lance Henriksen as the captain. You got Burt Young, Paulie from the Rocky films as the mob guy. You have James Earl Jones as one of Thomas's friends, where they play at a club together. Just James Earl Jones plays the saxophone, he plays the piano. He's an ally. So yeah, a lot of recognizable people. Good cast. Definitely helps this movie. And the direction, there's nothing to run home about. There's nothing really particularly stylish or energetic with the direction. So it's kind of a, what do you call that director? Kind of traffic director. Just the guy that kind of directs people like traffic. You move here, you move there. But there's nothing really stylish done with the camera or anything of the sort. But even with that, maybe because he wrote the film, like Thomas Ian Griffith put a bit more effort to the acting, and there's some fun lines or dialogue. The way the guy has a sense of humor. Oh, you got a sprained, like talking to a bad guy who's in a hospital. Oh, you got a sprained ankle? And he starts hitting the guy in the ankle multiple times. You know, I'm gonna shove these broken ribs through your fucking lungs. Or he's fighting the guy, give it up. And the guy goes, fuck you. Oh, that's original. And when he's trying to piss off Burt Young, yeah, come on, I want to see the tough guy, huh? I want to see the tough guy, you know, that does this and does that. And it was an enjoyable surprise. Like I said, good multiple amounts of. It doesn't take too long for an action scene to happen. Like I said, you get some gunplay, nice tits. Like he tits one guy through plate glass window. When he finds out that someone he knows passed away and was killed, he just goes in, just kicking everybody's ass, wrecking the house. There's like, it's one of those movies that there's not a lot of other high style action, meaning there's not really any big car chases. I mean, there's a bit where he almost gets hit by a car and he has to, well, actually there's a couple times he almost gets hit by a car. There's like 2 or 3 times where he's able to shoot the guy through the windshield. But I mean, there's not actual like big car chases or explosion. Well, that's not true. There's one explosion. But it's not like multitude of huge explosions. So it's not that type of action film. It's definitely one where it's either gunplay or mostly Thomas showcases his martial arts. And it's decently violent too. There's one guy that gets a pin like shoved through their ear. There's a guy that gets killed with a pitchfork. Practical blood squibs. And like the movie goes at a good pace. So there's like a drug bust that goes wrong. You have action scene happening there. Let's say there's a bit where he finds a friend of his died. And so he goes in, kicking everybody's ass in these various locations. There's an action scene at a train yard. There's an action scene at this place he's holed up trying to protect Charlotte Lewis at this farmhouse. It was nice to see people like Tony Todd working with Lance Henriksen and those two actors share a few scenes together. The ending, that could have... Okay, spoiler alert. You find out that Tony Todd's character faked his own death and he stole the drug money, and he's working with Lance Henriksen, who is corrupt, and he's the main bad guy. And they framed Thomas Ian Griffith because they thought he was going to kill Burt Young, but he didn't. So Tony Todd killed Burt Young, and they put the blame on Thomas Ian. And Lance Henriksen wanted Burt Young dead because he worked with him back to the day, and now he's going to be the chief of police instead of just the captain, and he wants that dirty work to be kept under wraps for good. And come on, you got Lance Henriksen as a boss. That's always a good time. Stone Cold Brian Bosworth, Hard Target, this movie. And it's funny, this is the same year as Hard Target. Now, this does not at all equal to Hard Target. But it's always great to see Lance Henriksen as the bad guy. And I do wish the ending was a bit more pretty much... Thomas has a bit of a fight with Tony Todd. But I do like Tony Todd's performance where you get the sense of he really does care for his partner. Even though at the end of the fight, he's still trying to protect him. But then Lance kills him off. But pretty much a little bit of back and forth in a few locations between him and Lance. And then pretty much Lance is like climbing a ladder. And Thomas like kicks Lance off a roof. And he falls and then he's dead. I thought there was going to be a bit more. Like, he wouldn't survive that, granted, but I don't know whether... Hard Target did it better. I mean, it's back and forth fight with fire, board on fire, kid in shadow lands, hunting season's over, big explosion. Like, that's doing a much more satisfying, grand nature. Maybe they didn't have the budget for it. Maybe they thought that... I'm not saying do the same thing. I mean... Even Stone Cold, that finale felt a bit bigger. I mean, the whole finale on in DC was a much bigger... I wish there was a bit of a bigger finale with all this build up to. Like, you have all these nice little bits of action. You want to save the best and the biggest for last, and it didn't seem like the case. Because, Lance is a great actor. There's not much he can do physically to a martial artist. He's not a formidable foe physically. So you're not going to get, much for a fight scene. And maybe, like, if he had, like, a bunch of dirty cops there where you did a bit... I just wish the finale was a bit bigger. A bigger set piece is what I'm getting at. So I wish for that. The score, I wish maybe a bit of a tighter, stronger musical score. Like, here it's average. Let's say the direction, maybe a bit more stylish or energetic direction. So there's little nitpicks here and there. But overall, if you like these type of movies, if you like action that's fast-paced, has a ton of action in it, and I thought the lead guy did a good job. Capable in his tits, and he does like a nice axe tit where he lifts his leg up and puts it down on a guy. He's pretty fast and efficient in his moves. And I did some nice high kicks. Nice showcase from the show what he can do. And would like to have seen more of that. But sadly, again, this film was a big bomb and did absolutely nothing. So yeah, good cast. I enjoyed the lead. Fast pace. Ton of action. Typical story, generic musical score, even the song at the end, and it's kind of generic song at the end. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. But watch it. It's always nice to find a movie like this because they'll never make a movie truly like this again because of the budgets and the technology and even the use of CGI and squibs and all that. So it's nice to see find a film that I missed back in the day. I'm like, I would have enjoyed this as a kid. Watching all those other films I mentioned before. Because I grew up with those type of films, like Double Impact and The Perfect Weapon and Out for Justice and such. So excessive force works well in that regime, in that realm. Maybe not as good as Out for Justice or other stuff, but it fits fairly well in that. Where I think if you're a fan of that, you'd be a fan of this. So with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later.